What's up, gamers? Have you ever wondered what it's like to transform into a giant butt-kicking toad and take on an army of bizarre enemies? Well, let me take you back to a time when mullets ruled and arcades were the epicenters of gaming. Yes, I'm talking about the early 90s. In the game, none other than Battletoads. This isn't just any game. It's a roller coaster of pixelated pain and pleasure that has etched its name into gaming history. It's a tale of toads, not just any toads, but toads with attitudes, battling their way through a galaxy that seems to have an odd fixation on giant snakes and turbo tunnels. So buckle up, because we're about to dive into the pixelated pond of Battletoads, a game that's as notorious for its crushing difficulty as it is for its radical characters. And trust me, this journey is going to be as wild as riding a one-wheel bike down a mountain blindfolded.
Battletoads.
Back in 1991, the gaming world was dominated by Italian plumbers and blue hedgehogs. And then Rare, a relatively unknown British game developer, decided to throw a curveball into the mix. Enter Battletoads, a game that was not only a technical marvel for its time, but also a cheeky response to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle craze. Rare, knowing for pushing the limits of the NES hardware, collaborated with publisher Tradewest to bring this amphibian adventure to life. The game's development was spearheaded by two brothers, Tim and Chris Stamper. These guys were like the dynamic duo of game design, with Tim overseeing the overall development and Chris handling the graphics. They wanted to create something that stood out in the sea of side-scrollers, and oh boy, did they deliver. What's fascinating is the level of detail and innovation they poured into this game. The Stampers didn't just want another beat 'em up, they wanted a game that constantly changed its gameplay style. From rappelling down caverns to racing turbo bikes, Battletoads was a smorgasbord of genres packed into one cartridge. Then you have the graphics that push the NES to its limits. We're talking about huge sprites, impressive animations, and backgrounds that made you feel like you were in an intergalactic comic book. The NES was limited by its tiny memory, but the Stampers used a technique called bank switching. This allowed them to swap different parts of the game in and out of memory as needed, effectively giving them a way to bypass the hardware limitations. Also, the NES could only handle a few sprites on the screen at once without flickering or slowing down. The Stampers, however, used a technique where they dynamically loaded and unloaded the sprites. This meant they could have large, detailed characters and environments without overloading the system. It was like a high-stakes game of Tetris, where every block had to fit perfectly. And then there's the parallax scrolling. This is a technique where background layers move at different speeds, creating an illusion of depth. In Battletoads, this was used to breathtaking effect, making the environments feel rich and three-dimensional. They also employed clever color palettes. The NES had a limited color palette, but through the careful selection and manipulation of these colors, the Stamper brothers created vibrant, dynamic levels that popped off the screen. Lastly, let's talk about the flickering effect. When too many objects were on the screen, the NES would typically slow down. The Stampers used a trick where they could rapidly toggle the visibility of sprites, reducing the load on the system. This kept the game running smoothly, but also gave it a unique visual design. Alright, let's hop right into the world of Battletoads, a game that stars three totally awesome protagonists, Rash, Zitz, and Pimple. These aren't your average garden variety toads, they're beefed up, wisecracking amphibians on a mission to save their friend, Princess Angelica, from the clutches of the Dark Queen. Now, if that sounds like a plot straight out of a Saturday morning cartoon, you're not wrong. Battletoads took the classic damsel in distress trope and turned it into a galactic romp. Rash, with his iconic glasses, is the cool dude of the trio. Zitz, the leader, is the brains behind the operation. And Pimple, he's the muscle. He's got the biceps to prove it. These characters were designed not just as protagonists, but as the caricatures of the era's pop culture heroes. They were a parody, an homage, and a fresh take on the action hero archetype all rolled into one. But let's not forget the villains. The Dark Queen, with her over-the-top evilness and strangely glamorous aura, became an iconic antagonist. She's like if Maleficent took fashion tips from an 80s rock band. And then there's the array of bizarre henchmen. From the Psycho Pigs to the Robo-Manus, each enemy was more outlandish than the last. The game's lore might not have had the depth of a Tolkien novel, but it had personality in spades. It was quirky, it was weird, and it was unapologetically fun. The story unfolded like an intergalactic road trip, with each level introducing new environments and narratives. From the Ragnarok's Canyon to the Surf City, every level was a chapter in its zany adventure, and the players were there along for the ride. The game didn't just tell a story, it threw players into a comic book-like universe, where the absurd was the norm and the normal was nowhere to be found. It's this blend of unique characters, a simple yet engaging storyline, and a world filled with absurdity that gave Battletoads its charm. The game wasn't just about beating up bad guys, it was about immersing yourself in a universe that was a tongue-in-cheek homage to everything that made the 90s so wonderfully bizarre. Diving into the gameplay mechanics of Battletoads, we're not just talking about your run-of-the-mill beat-em-up. This game was like a Swiss Army knife of gaming. Every level brought a new mechanic, a new challenge, and yes, new ways to hurl your controller across the room in frustration. The gameplay was a wild, unpredictable beast, constantly morphing and keeping players on their toes, or webbed feet in this case. Let's start with the core mechanics. Here, Battletoads delivered hard-hitting action with a side of humor. Ever wanted to headbutt someone so hard they turned into dust? Well, in Battletoads, you could. The combat was satisfyingly brutal, with a variety of attacks and combo moves that turned each encounter into a ballet of destruction. And the Toads' ability to transform their limbs into giant boots or wrecking balls during attacks? Pure, unadulterated, comic book style awesomeness. But the Battletoads didn't just stop there. Oh no, it was just getting started. The game threw in platforming sections, racing levels, and even some that defined genre classifications. Remember the turbo tunnels? A level so infamously difficult that it's been burned into the memories of gamers as a trauma-inducing speed gauntlet. It was like playing a game of chicken with the wall, and the wall always won. 1 minute you're rappelling down a cavern, dodging birds and gas-spewing snakes. The next, you're surfing on the back of a snake through a maze of spikes and enemies. Battletoads was a game that refused to be pigeonholed into one gaming style. It was a shapeshifter, constantly evolving and keeping players guessing what madness was coming next. Battletoads was notoriously hard, and not in a, oh, I'll just try again way, more like a, I'm going to need therapy after this kind of way. It was a game that challenged players not to just beat it, but to master it. A challenge that became part of its appeal. Beating Battletoads wasn't just an achievement, it was a badge of honor. When Battletoads hit the shelves, it wasn't just a success, it was a blockbuster. We're talking about a game that sold over 1 million copies. A staggering number considering the era and the market size. That's right, 1 million people decided they were up for the challenge of navigating turbo tunnels and battling space rats. In the fandom, it was as intense as the gameplay. This was a community of gamers who didn't just play Battletoads, they lived it. Forums and fan sites popped up like toadstools, with players sharing tips, tricks, and their tales of triumphs and defeat. This was more than just a player base, it was a brotherhood of bruised thumbs. But the cultural impact of Battletoads went far beyond sales figures and fan forums. It seeped into the very fabric of pop culture. References to the game appeared in TV shows, comics, and even other video games. It became a symbol of hardcore gaming, a benchmark of difficulty that few other games have reached. The phrase, as hard as Battletoads, echoed in the schoolyards and college dorms, synonymous with anything brutally challenging yet irresistibly engaging. And then there was the pranks. Oh, the pranks. The infamous calls to the show Pawn Stars asking for Battletoads became a legendary joke.
Do you have Battletoads?
No, your mom.
A meme before memes were a thing. This prank turned the game into an emblem of the gamer culture. A shared inside joke among millions. From a game design perspective, Battletoads was more than influential. It inspired a generation of game developers with its genre-bending gameplay and distinctive art style. Its legacy is evident in the countless platformers and beat-em-ups that followed trying to capture that magic. In the end, what makes Battletoads so unforgettable isn't just the knuckle-blistering difficulty or the eclectic mix of gameplay styles. It's the legacy it leaves behind, a legacy that echoes through the halls of gaming history. Battletoads wasn't just a game, it was a phenomenon. It challenged the status quo, dared to be different, and in doing so, carved out a niche that still resonates with gamers today. This game taught us that difficulty isn't just about frustration. It's about the satisfaction that comes from overcoming seemingly impossible odds. It's a testament to the idea that gaming, as in life, the toughest challenges often lead the most lasting impressions. As we look back on the legacy of Battletoads, we don't see just a game. We see a milestone in gaming history, a benchmark of creativity and challenge, and a source of endless nostalgia and respect from the gaming community. Battletoads wasn't just a game you played, it was a game you experienced. And that, dear gamer, is what legends are made of. If you enjoyed uncovering the history of Battletoads, click this video here to see more from the Retro Reload, and thanks for watching.